no matter where you are. Nature never plays favorites. Strength and strategy. Which matters most? Let us know what you think in the comments before we begin the animal documentary. Buffalo versus predators. Brute strength meets lethal ambush. The 1890s were the darkest chapter in the history of African wildlife. Italian forces, at the time pursuing their ambition to invade Ethiopia, imported herds of livestock from India and the Arabian Peninsula. These imported cattle carried the rinderpest virus. While livestock in Asia had already developed a certain level of antibodies, animals in Africa had no immunity at all. In less than 10 years, this virus in one fell swoop wiped out more than 90% of cattle and wild-hoofed animals across the continent. Their decline left predators starving on a massive scale, and the grasslands grew too tall, leading to intense wildfires. Africa's ecosystems were changed forever. It took more than 100 years, until May 2011, for the World Organization for Animal Health to officially announce that rinderpest had been completely eradicated. This was the first and only viral disease in veterinary history to be fully removed from the planet by humans. Today, buffalo, zebra, and antelope have returned to their wild home. Although it has not been possible to restore the several million wild individuals seen before the 1890s, the African buffalo has rebounded strongly to around 900,000 individuals. According to data updated by the Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute in early 2026, Tanzania is currently home to the largest number of African buffalo, with about 225,000 individuals. The Serengeti ecosystem leads with around 70,000 warriors forming an unbreakable wall. In second place is Nyerere National Park with more than 66,000 individuals. In South Africa, Kruger National Park also has a very high and stable density of wild buffalo with an estimated 45,000 to 48,000 individuals.
Let's go over to you. Look what
You cannot tame a slow-burning bomb like the African buffalo, Their temperament is so impulsive that it reaches an extreme. Their ferocity has become legendary among tribes such as the Balate and the Shona. They call them nyati, a sacred presence, yet one wrapped in a chilling aura. They never let an enemy off the hook. In a community of thousands, power does not rest in the hands of a dictator. Buffalo operate through a primitive but remarkably precise democratic system. When the herd is resting, the adult females carry out a behavioral voting process. This mechanism allows collective intelligence to shine at full strength, helping the herd use the experience of every seasoned individual instead of betting their lives on a single leader. Their social bond reaches a level of steel-like discipline. A blind or disabled individual can still survive for years within the protective circle of the group. That is unconditional care. When night falls, the moment when apex predators begin their hunt, the buffalo herd activates a remarkable defense mechanism: absolute silence. Their flexible fission-fusion social structure allows them to split apart or regroup depending on resources, but their spirit of unity never changes. But every defensive strategy has its limits. The greatest battle of the savannah between raw muscle and the masterful hunting skill of lions is about to begin. For a lion family, one African buffalo is the energy jackpot, but it is also a life or death gamble. With younger individuals, the game unfolds quickly and cleanly. In less than 30 minutes, 4 young females demonstrated elite hunting craftsmanship by bringing down 3 buffalo calves. A well-earned reward for patience and coordination. However, when the target is an adult weighing nearly 1 ton, individual technique must give way to the lasting strength of an entire pride. These female warriors are much smaller than their target. The first strike always aims at the hindquarters and back legs, the critical weak point for slowing the giant down. The ultimate goal is to make the prey stumble. Once the giant goes down, the outcome is nearly sealed with a crushing hold on the windpipe or a tight grip over the muzzle that leads to suffocation. Even so, the muscular power of an African buffalo often goes far beyond every biological calculation. The hunt fails. The buffalo's retreat is not fear. They possess a fierce mobbing counterattack strategy. Even more unsettling, African buffalo carry out a root and branch strategy. They actively search for the scent of lion cubs and trample them, removing potential future threats before they have a chance to grow. But beyond the disciplined herds, the savanna also hides another source of fear. These are the ones that chose a solitary life, the ones with nothing left to lose, carrying the purest form of ferocity within them. It is time for us to face the dagger boys, the mud shadow phantoms of the savanna. The savanna has no retirement plan for those who lose their standing. When a male African buffalo passes 12 or 15 years of age, he loses his dominant status. His strength declines, his agility fades, and he is driven from the herd by fierce younger rivals. These former kings are known by a dust-worn name, dagger boys. Dagger in local language means mud. Mud is the only companion these fellows have left. Their appearance is a journal of past battles. The boss grows dense and heavy, strong enough to withstand head-on impacts measured in tons. This is a tempting target for lion groups craving a large meal, but it is also their worst nightmare. Look at these 5 young male lions. They are powerful and ruthless, but they lack hard-earned experience. Their opponent is one they should not face without survival wisdom, a dagger boy. A lifetime of experience has taught the old buffalo a tactical lesson. Big cats are extremely reluctant swimmers. A remarkable reversal. The lion is no longer hunting. He is clinging to a life raft to keep himself from going under. A chilling level of composure. The dagger boy endures the pain from the claws and slowly guides his rival into deeper water, where crocodiles are already waiting. He does not need to be faster. He only needs to endure longer. Time seems to stand still for the lions watching helplessly from the bank. When he senses true panic and knows his rival's fighting spirit has fully dissolved, the aging giant gives the young male lion a mulligan. African buffalo overpower the harshest hunters with endurance, persistence, and an unbelievably cold demeanor. But the savanna is not the only place where these giants rule. Far from the sun-scorched mud flats of the savanna, another world lies deep beneath the dense canopy of the Congo River basin. That is the domain of the African forest buffalo. This is a vivid little version, but no less rugged. With a body weight ranging from only 250 to 320 kilograms, they are just 1/3 the size of their relatives in the savannah. Their striking brick red coat helps them blend beautifully into the dim twilight beneath the forest canopy. Their most distinctive feature is their ears, long tufts of hair that look like nature's paintbrushes. Unlike Cape buffalo, this species has short horns under 40 centimeters. Curving backward and completely lacks the bony shield across the forehead. It is built to slip through dense, tangled thickets. The absence of a boss suggests they rarely need head-on, iron-hard confrontations like those living in open grasslands. Their social structure carries a much calmer tone. While male Cape buffalo often choose a forceful, solitary life, African forest buffalo are family loyal by nature. There are no solitary dagger boys here. A small herd of 3 to 30 individuals is usually led by 1 or 2 adult males who choose to stay with females and calves for life. Even the way they choose where to live is deeply strategic. Although they are known as forest buffalo, they actually prefer small grass clearings, marshes, and especially old human logging roads. There, sunlight can reach the ground, allowing grasses and sedges, their main energy source, to thrive. Even though it can weigh nearly 1 ton, and among all members of the bovini family it carries some of the most impressive muscles, the African buffalo is not the undisputed size champion. Let us leave Africa and head to harsh lands that forge true walls of muscle. Winter in Yellowstone is not for amateurs. For the American bison, this is just a normal Monday. They are another famous member of the bovini family, the tribe of giant hoofed animals. They represent 2 separate evolutionary branches: the Bubalina subtribe, the true buffalo of the Old World, and the bovina subtribe, the group that includes domestic cattle and bison. If Bubalina representatives such as the Cape buffalo optimized horns that can withstand even bullets and endurance in tropical heat, then bovina members such as bison developed a muscular shoulder hump and a thick coat to handle the cold. Their dense winter coat locks heat tightly inside the body, so effectively that not a trace of warmth escapes to melt the snow above. This is a moving fortress, a challenger to nature's harshness with the gift it was given. Today, about 400,000 to 500,000 American bison roam across North America. an impressive number, but only a faint shadow of the past. In Yellowstone alone, where Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming meet, the largest wild population in the world survives at around 4,800 to 6,000 individuals. This is the only sanctuary in the United States where this species has lived continuously since prehistoric times. In the late 19th century, when firearms pushed them to the edge of disappearance, these canyons sheltered the last 23 warriors. Every bison you see here today carries the bloodline of those 23 great survivors. The giant hump on the shoulder is a mass of pure muscle, supported by elongated vertebrae along the back. It works like a hydraulic lever system, allowing the animal to swing its heavy head like an industrial plow. This adaptation helps them reach nutrition that other herbivores can only watch from a distance in despair. Visitors often mistake American bison for slow and gentle giants, a misunderstanding that can lead to heartbreak. From 1980 to 1999, the number of American bison incidents involving humans here was 3 times higher than bears. They are saving energy for the real battles. Even rubbing their horns against cedar or pine trunks is a scientific calculation. They use tree resin and essential oils as a natural insect repellent, preparing for the harsh summer ahead. But their greatest foe is a genetic ghost from the past. After the genetic bottleneck of the late 19th century, efforts to save this species led to crossbreeding with domestic cattle, creating catalo or beefalo. Modern genetic analysis reveals a stark truth. Most bison herds today, including those in Yellowstone, carry between 0.56% and 1.8% domestic cattle deoxyribonucleic acid. Individuals that are 100% pure are now little more than ancient legends. What we are looking at are imperfect echoes of the past, but their power to endure has never been diluted. The harshness of the environment has selected the strongest, but winter is not the only hunter here. Those watching them from the shadows are far more ruthless and decisive. When facing the end, bison do not run. They form ranks. In Yellowstone, the list of creatures capable of challenging a prehistoric mass of muscle like the American bison is very short. Among the most prominent mammals of this high plateau, only gray wolves and grizzly bears are true contenders for the role of throne toppler. However, each side follows a completely different hunting philosophy. Grey wolves are master strategists. The target is always the collapse of the defensive line. This is a psychological standoff. Wolves will test the herd's patience for hours, and sometimes the chase lasts more than 9 hours. If the wolves do not show clear stalking behavior, the American bison herd will often ignore them. The horns of the American bison are not useless decorations. To reduce risk, wolf packs that specialize in hunting bison usually have a higher proportion of males than normal. The size and weight of male wolves are key factors in bringing down a target that can weigh 15 times more than they do. This threat reaches its peak in late winter, when deep snow drains the herd's energy and turns these giants into weakened targets. In contrast to the wolves' enduring coordination, grizzly bears are more like professional highway robbers. They have the strength to overpower an adult American bison, but they rarely choose to do it. Taking on a healthy bison alone is a low-return gamble with very high risk for a solitary hunter. So, grizzly bears choose a less bloody path, driving off wolves and taking over the results of their labor. A surprisingly successful risk manager. When forced to hunt on their own, grizzly bears focus only on targets with little ability to protect themselves. These clashes are never personal. They are cold calculations of calories and survival. The predators are waiting for winter to do its harshest work, stripping strength from the giants. The struggle between these forces is an endless play on Yellowstone's stage. But whether wolf or bear, they all face the same truth. Bringing down an icon of strength has never been easy. In many people's minds, the American bison is a single, uniform creature. But evolution does not work in such a simple way. Nature has created subtle refinements to match each distinct habitat. In the northern forests of Alaska, Yukon, and Canada's Northwest Territories, we encounter the wood bison, the true giant of this continent. The difference is not only in size. Look at the hump, the signature mark of this lineage. Plains bison have a smaller, more smoothly rounded hump. In contrast, the wood bison carries a towering mass of muscle, clearly raised and more squared at the highest point. The skull structure is also refined, giving this northern forest subspecies a more powerful set of horns for dealing with predators in the tight spaces of the taiga forest. Two lives, two destinies, separated by latitude and old-growth forests, leading to different conservation regulations between the United States and Canada. If we cross the ocean to the Old World, we meet the European bison, also known as the wisent. Although they look similar, this is a completely different chapter in the anatomy book. American bison are low-slung muscle machines, with their center of mass shifted forward, with 15 pairs of ribs and 4 lumbar vertebrae. Their neck structure gives them a natural forward-down head posture, turning them into specialists at grazing close to the ground. Meanwhile, their European relatives have 14 pairs of ribs and 5 lumbar vertebrae. Longer legs give them a more graceful appearance. Most importantly, a distinctive neck structure helps the wisent keep its muzzle facing forward, making it a specialist browser that feeds on leaves and young branches at higher levels. If we travel a little farther into the coldest polar regions of North America, we can also often encounter another large figure. Although it carries the name musk ox, genetically, it is one of nature's curveballs. Musk oxes belong to the caprinae subfamily, closer to goats and sheep than to true cattle. Their long flowing coat is a perfect design for withstanding polar harshness. However, top-tier cold tolerance is not found only at the highest latitudes. There are places where the cold does not come from the north, but from altitude pressure and the severity of the atmosphere. When oxygen grows thin, a thick coat and a massive body once again become the key to survival. There, another warrior is waiting for us, one carrying the strength of eternal snow-covered peaks, the wild yak. Asia is a land of extremes. The highest mountains on Earth create their own rules of survival. At the center of that harsh world, on the Tibetan plateau, a giant reigns, the wild yak. They are more closely related to American and European bison than to any other cattle species in Asia. Their ancestor, Bos baikalensis, once ruled the lands of eastern Russia. From those frozen grasslands, the yak's relatives made a great migration across a land bridge and became the bison that now dominate the plains of the Americas. At elevations where oxygen is reduced by half, the usual rivals fade away, giving way to a contest of giant weight classes. The snow leopard, the phantom of the high mountains, is often seen as the ultimate hunter. However, in front of an adult male wild yak, every ambush skill becomes useless. A giant weighing up to 1,200 kilograms with skin 3 centimeters thick is a problem with no clear answer for a big cat that weighs less than 1/10 as much. Snow leopards are cautious by nature. They know that colliding with a moving mountain is never a good idea. That gap makes the wild yak nearly untouchable to solitary hunters. But even when facing persistent hunting packs like the Tibetan wolf, their status hardly shifts. Although they belong to the same species as the gray wolf warriors in Yellowstone, Tibetan wolves weigh only about 35 kilograms, half the weight of the hunters that pursue American bison. In addition, wild yak are usually larger than bison, though the difference is not dramatic. Solitary bulls, also known as drong, are the embodiment of pure fury. There are real records of a single drong scattering the formation of a pack of 6 Tibetan wolves with charging blows alone. In this highland arena, the wild yak is the very definition of sovereignty. But when hunters cannot threaten it, extreme weather can. The wild yak needs a flawless defensive strategy. While the males choose a solitary life, female yaks and calves build living fortresses under the guidance of a wise lead female. When temperatures fall to life-threatening levels or the silhouette of a predator appears, the herd presses tightly together. The calves are placed at the center, protected by a wall of ultra-insulating fur. Even the Tibetan brown bear, the largest carnivore on the plateau, rarely has the nerve to break through this fortress. Wise bears usually choose to become scavengers, waiting for nature to do the hard part for them, rather than risking those razor-sharp horns. Crowding creates heat, and unity creates life. When spring returns, these fortresses move again, continuing their journey of dominance across the grasslands above the clouds. The wild yak has held its ground here for thousands of years, and as long as these mountains remain, they will still be the uncrowned kings of the roof of the world. Do you think that if a predator with a size comparable to a lion could live in the cold, or if Tibetan wolves could grow to the size of their Yellowstone relatives, wild yak would face truly formidable rivals? Share your thoughts in the comments. At elevations above 4,000 meters on the Tibetan plateau, life is not for the faint-hearted. The atmosphere is so thin that every breath becomes a burden. Snowstorms can bring down almost any creature in just minutes. To rule this extreme land, the wild yak needs a special kind of armor. An armor built with a multi-layered pelage structure. The outer protective layer is made of coarse, shaggy hair that can grow up to 40 centimeters long. In adult males, nature has designed a hanging fur skirt that drapes from the chest, flanks, and thighs. This skirt acts like a near-solid barrier, stopping icy winds before they can reach the body's warmth. Hidden deep beneath the coarse strands is a dense underfur system. The fibers are tightly interwoven. Air is trapped firmly inside this layer, fully blocking heat loss and keeping the animal wrapped in a stable cocoon of warmth. Its defensive ability is not only passive. Beneath the skin, the erector's pylorem muscle system works like an intelligent sensor network. When the temperature drops suddenly, these muscles contract and force the entire underfur layer to stand upright. The thickness of the armor increases immediately, sealing off every gap where heat could escape. Even more unique, the wild yak secretes a special adhesive mixed into its sweat. This substance binds the underfur fibers together, forming a remarkably durable cushion layer that is almost water-resistant. A perfect self-sealing mechanism against the moisture of melting snow. As winter approaches, hair follicles that were in a resting state begin to activate. The amount of underfur on the back and shoulders rises sharply from 17.5% to 30%, preparing for the harshest winter nights. With tones ranging from jet black to dark brown, the wild yak makes full use of dense pigment granules to absorb heat from rare sunlight. More importantly, the dense pigmentation in the skin protects them from the intense ultraviolet radiation on the treeless plateau. Even the eyes are protected. The forehead hair grows long and hangs down like natural sunglasses, reducing glare and shielding the retina from direct solar radiation. Unlike the tails of domestic cattle or American bison, which are often sparse, the wild yak's tail grows long, dense hair from base to tip. It looks just like a horse's tail, forming a shield that covers the entire rear of the body. All of these features turn them into a true moving fortress, nearly untouchable against nature's harshest trials. But they do far more than just stay warm. Most cattle need only 13 pairs of ribs to protect their internal organs. But to operate this massive fur fortress, nature equipped the wild yak with 14 pairs of ribs and 14 thoracic vertebrae. This enormous chest structure is essential space for housing oversized lungs and a large heart. This design is optimized for pumping oxygen at elevations where most other mammals would struggle for air. The real secret lies deep in its bloodstream. The wild yak retains fetal hemoglobin into adulthood. This special protein has an exceptionally high affinity for oxygen. It works like a powerful biological magnet, drawing in and making the most of every oxygen molecule from the thinnest air on the planet. However, this bodily fortress has one critical weakness. With a thick layer of fat beneath the skin and a coat that works like a natural thermal flask, the wild yak has almost no functional sweat glands. They can barely release heat. When the surrounding temperature reaches 15 degrees Celsius, its body begins to slip into heat overload. Exhaustion arrives quickly and harshly. In this land, the sun can sometimes feel more fearsome than any hunter. To avoid collapse when summer arrives, they shed their underfur in large patches. A mandatory change in appearance to maintain the delicate balance between survival and collapse. Amid the plateau's familiar dark herds, a radiant figure appears as if forged from sunlight. For the people of the Tibetan Plateau, wild yak are not only untamed giants. Among that dark army, they recognize rare individuals who, to them, are signs of the gods. Golden wild yak. This is one of the rarest biological mysteries in the natural world. A tiny population with only about 300 individuals remaining. They exist in complete isolation in the Ali region of Tibet, at a breathtaking elevation of 4,800 to 5,500 meters. Science explains this golden coat through a recessive mutation in the melanocortin-1 receptor gene. This change suppresses melanin production, turning giants built to absorb heat into moving bars of gold in the frozen highlands. For Tibetans, they are the dowry of the sacred mountains, the mounts of the highest gods. That belief has unintentionally created a near-perfect shield from human pursuit. A remarkable blend of genetics and faith has kept this rare bloodline alive on the roof of the world. Farewell to the biting chill of the high peaks. We move down into the tropical forests of India and Southeast Asia. Here, the gaur holds the crown. This is not the kind of cattle you usually see in peaceful fields. This is the largest living member of the bovine family still on the planet. The weight of a gaur can reach the 1,500 kilogram mark. Imagine a heavy sport utility vehicle wrapped in glossy black hide and driven by pure survival instinct. The shoulder height of an adult male can reach up to 2.2 meters. A number big enough to make almost any predator step back in fear. Has nature been too generous to them? Let us know what you think about this species in the comments below. The difference between the two sexes in this species is incredibly clear. While the female is only large enough to overpower most other hoofed mammals, the male is a heavily upgraded version in every way. The shoulder muscles form a massive hump combined with a thick neck and a long-hanging dewlap, creating an extremely rugged appearance. Their horns are the most formidable blades, not as solid as the horn base of the Cape buffalo, but longer and very well suited for side-hooking strikes. In the world of giants, force is not always the first choice. When dominance is challenged, the male will lift his head high while pressing his muzzle straight down toward the ground. This display structure helps them show off their full shoulder height and the enormous muscle mass along the back. To the one facing him, that posture is a warning. In most cases, the weaker one will understand the message and withdraw in silence. The reality is, very few are reckless enough to challenge a wall of muscle weighing more than 1 ton in its most agitated state. Tiger is the phantom ruler of the forests of India. Even though hunts like this do not happen often, and gaur is not the tiger's preferred meal, the king of the jungle still has its own way of showing the forest its remarkable hunting skill. Hunting a giant is not work for amateurs. This is a specialized skill, often passed down from generations of seasoned hunters or refined by dominant male tigers through hard-earned experience. Its greatest weapon is invisibility, and interestingly, the prey's own eyes help make that strategy work. Gaur have dichromatic vision. They lack cone cells that detect long wavelengths, causing the red and orange tones of a tiger's coat to fade completely in their eyes. To the gaur, the hunter is wearing perfect camouflage, blending into dry grass and brush as a dull, grayish-yellow shade. Tiger is a master of patience. It moves little by little, always staying upwind to hide its distinctive scent. The ultimate target is the throat, where the windpipe and carotid arteries are located. However, with prey that is too large, the strategy has to change. An all-or-nothing gamble. With just one careless second, the tiger can be pierced by the horns or crushed under a 1,000-kilogram weight. The unity of the gaur herd is also a constant threat. If the call for help echoes long enough, the whole herd will circle back, turning the hunter into the one being chased. A successful hunt brings an enormous food supply, enough to sustain the king of the jungle for 2 full weeks. Dragging a carcass many times heavier than its own body into a hidden spot is the final test of strength. The tiger will enjoy its reward in quiet, far from the watchful eyes of hyenas or bears. Each meal like this is proof that intelligence and stalking skill can overcome raw power. A peak performance in the ancient forests of Asia. There is only one more contender left to mention. Its closest relative to the Cape buffalo in Asia, the wild water buffalo, also known as the Asian buffalo. They are not the gentle livestock you usually see in rural areas. Wildlife documentaries often praise the power of the African buffalo. However, if you put them on the scale, this cousin from Asia is the true winner in the weight class. With a body length of 2.7 meters, they command swampy ground like an armored ship that will not budge. Challenging a creature with the mass of a small truck in deep mud is never a smart move. The clearest identifying trait of the wild water buffalo lineage lies in its legendary horns. These horns rarely drop below their eye level. This design helps maximize vision while still providing a defensive weapon with an astonishing span. Having a gigantic body always comes with a high price. Their skin layer is noticeably thicker than that of other cattle, but their hair is very sparse. Wild water buffalo are almost unable to cool themselves efficiently by sweating. They must depend on watery habitats to keep going. A thick coat of mud works like an insulating armor, helping shield them from the blazing tropical sun. At the same time, it protects their skin from biting blood-feeding insects. The number of wild water buffalo today is extremely low, and they are facing a very high risk of disappearing. According to the latest figures, the total global population of truly wild water buffalo is estimated at fewer than 4,000 individuals. One reason is that their habitat has been converted into agricultural land. On top of that, the spread of domestic buffalo has expanded. They frequently breed with wild buffalo, causing the pure bloodline to gradually fade. In addition, wild water buffalo can easily pick up illnesses from domestic livestock, such as foot and mouth disease. Much smaller than many wild species, but the domestic water buffalo is a truly influential force. Five millennia ago, when the dawn of agriculture was shining over the wetlands, humans made one of the greatest biological gambles in history. They chose the water buffalo as a companion. Unlike their African buffalo relatives in Africa, known for being fierce and impossible to tame, the water buffalo branch accepted the yoke on its shoulders in exchange for protection. They became the living engine of rice-growing civilizations, steady and enduring. However, that tolerance was only a thin outer layer. When a domestic animal slips free from human control and survives on its own, science calls it feral. This is not simply getting lost. It is the revival of ancient instincts. Draw a clear line between wild and feral. True wild water buffalo carry a bloodline that has never been touched by the yoke of servitude, living in small superherds of only 5 to 30 individuals to remain completely hidden. Meanwhile, feral buffalo are escapees whose ancestors were domestic stock. They make a leap back through time from domesticated life to a wild state again. Water buffalo have a surprisingly low level of domestication. With just 1 to 2 generations without human contact, suspicion and territorial protectiveness can quickly turn a former owner into a potential rival. Physically, water buffalo are true tanks. Humans did not breed them to become fragile or dependent on concentrated feed like many modern beef cattle breeds. With an extremely efficient digestive system, they can make use of even the poorest grasses. That self-reliance allows them to spread into wetlands, dense forests, and grasslands. In Australia, from just a few individuals brought in during the 19th century, the feral water buffalo population grew explosively to hundreds of thousands. They formed super herds with tight social structure, led by dominant females, while large males took on the role of protectors. In many countries, when the last wild water buffalo had already disappeared, feral buffalo were brought in by accident or by design to fill the ecological gap. They became new warriors in the harsh arena of survival. Being free to multiply in environments with few natural predators turned them into a massive source of protein, drawing the attention of local top rulers. The expansion of feral water buffalo herds has carried them to unfamiliar horizons. Indonesia. On isolated islands, they face a nightmare where muscle and aggression become completely useless. Welcome to Komodo Island. Home of the Komodo dragon, this reptile's slow-looking appearance does not stop it from being an apex predator. Komodo dragons are masters of the ambush craft. They need only a single moment of carelessness. The Komodo dragon leaves in the victim's body a grim gift that sets the countdown in motion. This species' true weapon is hidden in its complex venom gland system. Modern science has confirmed the presence of anticoagulant and blood vessel widening proteins within their serrated bite. Once the toxins enter the circulatory system, the wound may never fully seal. The buffalo may keep moving, but each heartbeat now becomes its countdown clock. This is a game of patience. With its forked tongue, able to analyze scent molecules in the air, the Komodo dragon can track prey from several kilometers away, even after the animal has moved out of sight. The process of tissue breakdown and blood loss in the hot, humid tropics can last from several days to several weeks. The massive prey gradually fades. When the victim finally collapses from anaphylactic shock and exhaustion, that is when the feast begins. However, the challenge for water buffalo does not end on the reptiles' islands. At Yala National Park in Sri Lanka, water buffalo herds are facing a far more cunning hunter. Sri Lanka is a strange exception shaped by nature. Here, the absence of tigers and lions has left a massive power gap at the top of the food chain. And the leopard, the most broadly adaptable big cat on the planet, did not miss the chance to climb the throne and become the absolute ruler. In national parks such as Yala, they evolved to become larger, more intense, and to carry the pride of a true monarch. Even so, ruling this land is far from easy when the rival is the water buffalo. Facing one head-on is a mistake no wise hunter wants to make. The Sri Lanka leopard is practical to an almost cold degree. Instead of wasting energy on hopeless clashes with adult bull buffalo, it focuses on young calves or older, weakened individuals. This is a game of absolute focus. On other continents, hunters often have to struggle to haul prey up high to avoid hyenas or lions. But in the Kingdom of Sri Lanka, the rules are completely different. With no equally matched rivals nearby, the leopard can take its time enjoying the feast right on the ground, hidden in dense brush to stay out of sight of scavengers. This is the reward for a hunter that has mastered the art of survival in one of the harshest lands on Earth. If life in the wild is a gladiator arena where the end is always waiting behind every shadow, then domestication is the greatest retirement contract in history. Here, members of the bovini family traded freedom for a life with fewer upheavals. The giant eland is the largest antelope on Earth, with elegant spiral horns reaching up to 1.2 meters in length. Both males and females carry these weapons to assert status and protect themselves. Its most distinctive anatomical feature is the long-hanging neck dewlap, which helps release heat and also serves as a fat reserve to carry it through the harsh, dry season. But what is truly stunning is its mobility. From a standing position, this 1-ton giant can spring as high as 1.5 meters to clear obstacles. The future of the giant eland is being split between two very different paths. The western giant eland is now one of the rarest antelope species in the world. Only around 200 to 250 individuals remain in Niokolo-Koba National Park in Senegal. They are now standing at the very edge of disappearing. In Central African culture, the giant eland is a symbol of nobility and inner strength, honored as the king of antelopes. They appear in cave art from thousands of years ago, a sign of a deep spiritual bond with humans. For conservationists in Senegal, they are a source of national pride, an ambassador for some of the most rigorous biodiversity protection efforts. But the Bovine family still holds other secrets. If the giant eland is the solitary king of open woodland, then the next species on the list of bovine antelopes is a true artist of darkness and stillness. Greater kudu. In a world where being seen can mean the end, this is the most watchful one. If the giant eland is the solitary king of open woodland, then the next species on the list of bovine antelopes is a true artist of darkness and stillness. Greater kudu. In a world where being seen can mean the end, this is the most watchful one. But their most remarkable weapon is the ability to seem to vanish into the landscape. A camouflage system of 6 to 12 white stripes running along a gray-brown body helps break up their outline among brush and shadow. When standing still, the greater kudu no longer looks like an antelope, but becomes part of the woodland itself. Supporting that stillness is a pair of giant radar-like ears, so flexible they can pick up the slightest vibrations from the footsteps of an African lion or leopard at a distance, allowing them to prepare a perfect escape before the hunter can lock in its position. That refinement disappears completely when danger is very close. Their alarm bark is one of the most resonant sounds in the world of African antelopes. Even with a fairly large body, they still possess extraordinary agility, easily clearing fences higher than 2 meters with a single spring from a standing position. Even so, agility is not always enough against the traps of the terrain. In narrow ravines or muddy pools, one small mistake in choosing an escape route can turn a hunter of shadows into a helpless victim of patient predators. Their image appears with dignity on coats of arms and military insignia, representing wild beauty and enduring vitality. When darkness falls, those giant radar ears will still be listening to every breath of this land, guarding the secrets of the phantoms in the brush. If the greater kudu is the master of magnificent spirals, then its relative on the plains of southeastern Africa is a genius of visual deception. Adult males are giants in charcoal gray or deep brown, carrying long spiral horns and a stately mane running from the spine down to the belly. The most ironic accent is the bright yellow socks on the lower legs, a strange fashion detail in the harsh grasslands. By contrast, the females wear a vivid chestnut coat, have no horns, are smaller in build, and carry sharp white stripes that let them melt into sunlight filtering through the leaves. The one shared mark linking these two opposite forms is the distinctive white V-shaped stripe, known as the chevron. Lowland Nyala are very shy, preferring to be active at dawn or as night falls, and they spend most of their lives hidden in thick, thorny brush to stay out of sight of rivals. Groups maintain a flexible social structure, with members constantly shifting and moving between the buffer zones of woodland and grassland. For them, water is essential, so they remain closely tied to river valleys in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. While many other antelope species are nearing the edge of disappearing, the lowland Nyala tells an inspiring conservation story. In South Africa, their numbers are actually rising sharply thanks to reintroduction efforts in areas where they had once been completely wiped out. Seeing a male Nyala step out of the shadows is always a top-tier experience for anyone seeking nature at its most primal and the real deal. But the world of antelope-shaped creatures still holds another mysterious turn. Leaving behind the dry, thorny brush of the lowland Nyala, we move deeper into Africa's watery labyrinth, where the familiar rules of the bovini family seem to blur beneath murky water. This is the realm of the sitatunga, a professional mud-wading athlete carrying the bloodline of natural divers. Evolution gave the sitatunga a pair of shoes that almost no other antelope has. Its hooves, a record-setting 10 centimeters to 18 centimeters long, can spread wide to help distribute body weight efficiently across floating vegetation and soft mud. They walk where other species would be swallowed. Their bodies are covered in coarse fur with natural oils, like a true waterproof diving suit that helps retain warmth even after spending all day in cool water. When danger draws near, the sitatunga submerges itself and leaves only its nostrils above the surface to keep going. They can hold this position for quite a while, testing the patience of any hunter waiting on shore. From the eternal swamps of Central Africa to the Okavango Basin, their existence is closely tied to water. But this fortress is being worn down in silence. Wetland drainage for agriculture and wire snaring along fixed pathways in the reeds are pushing this antelope into a weaker position. The sitatunga will keep gliding through floating vegetation, preserving the spirit of Africa's waters. But our journey through the bovini family still has other brutal turns ahead. Leaving behind the vast wetlands ruled by the sitatunga, we move deeper into the shadows of dense thorny brush. Here, a small gladiator watches quietly from the shade, proving that fierceness does not scale with body weight. The Cape bushbuck is one of the most impressively confident and decisive members of the bovini family. Unlike most antelope species that live in herds for safety in numbers, this one chooses a solitary life. The difference between the sexes is very clear, shaped for their own survival strategies. By contrast, the female is smaller, wearing a bright reddish-brown coat with white spots that help her blend neatly into the early morning light. A solitary lifestyle is the strategy that helps them stay hidden and vanish into complex terrain without leaving a trace for rivals. When a threat becomes clear, the Cape bushbuck turns into a true warrior of the grasslands. One bold straight charge can make even a leopard or wild dogs pay a heavy price. Their weapons are not only their razor-sharp horns, but also a sharp alarm bark that rings through the forest. Cape bushbuck rarely move far from water and always keep a safe distance so they can quickly slip back into cover. What is remarkable is this antelope's ability to adapt to areas near cities and towns. They can still live close to human settlements, hiding in farms or gardens thanks to a varied diet and a talent for staying out of sight. In a constantly shifting natural world, resilience and subtle adaptability are the keys that help them hold their ground as outstanding survivors. Are there any other antelope species closely related to the African buffalo that you know of? Leave your comment below before we head back to Asia. Leaving Africa's wetlands behind, we cross the ocean to the Indian subcontinent. Here rules one of the most unusual members of the bovini family, nilgy. This is the largest antelope in Asia, a biological form that looks as if it were assembled from leftover parts of a horse and a cow. In Hindi, nilgy means blue cow. As males grow older, their coat shifts from dusty brown to a ghostly blue-gray shade. Their bodies slope steeply from high shoulders down to the hips, bringing to mind the outline of a giraffe. They are also masters of drought tolerance, able to go for days without drinking by drawing moisture from leaves. The native range of the nilgy stretches across India, Pakistan, and Nepal. But the story truly took a turn in the 1920s. Brought to Texas for hunting purposes, they found a second homeland. With a similar climate and the absence of major natural enemies, Texas now holds the second largest population in the world. with around 40,000 individuals. With more than 100,000 individuals in India, the nilgy is a true population powerhouse. However, success always comes with conflict. They raid crops like bandits, but they also carry a secret survival weapon: their name. In Hindi, Gai means cow, a sacred being in Hinduism. That name created an invisible sacred shield. Many people refuse to harm them because they see them as relatives of the holy cow. That cultural gap has allowed their population to surge, turning them into spiritually labeled crop raiders that are testing the patience of local farmers and buying them time. Leaving the dusty plains of the Indian subcontinent behind, our journey takes us back to the ancient primary forests of Southeast Asia. In 1992, the zoological world was shaken by a discovery considered one of the most extraordinary wonders of the 20th century. The saola emerged from the mist of the Annamite range and broke many familiar rules of classification. Though it carries the graceful look of an antelope, deoxyribonucleic acid analysis revealed a remarkable genetic secret. It is a close relative of cattle. The saola carries a pair of parallel horns sweeping backward, reaching up to 50 centimeters, creating a strikingly graceful appearance. Its most distinctive feature is the pure white markings on its face, like brushstrokes of art floating over a dark brown coat. But its true survival tool lies in the large sinus glands beneath the eyes. It uses these chemical factories to mark territory on tree trunks, creating a refined communication system far beyond many other hoofed mammals. Even so, that refinement comes with an extremely shy nature. The saola is so sensitive that it can fall into a state of extreme stress when in contact with humans. That is why no individual currently survives in captivity anywhere in the world. Its kingdom is only a narrow strip along the majestic Annamite range, where primary forest and mountain streams at elevations from 200 meters to 1,200 meters shelter it from human encroachment. In Vietnam, these phantoms were once recorded from Nghệ An to Quang Nam, but their continued presence is now at a red alert level. Classified as critically endangered, the saola population is estimated at fewer than 100 individuals, and it may be only a few dozen scattered deep in the forest. Since the first discovery, the number of times humans have seen them can be counted on one hand, and the last camera trap image in Vietnam was recorded in 2013. They are gradually fading into the void, becoming Asian unicorns that remain only in stories. Chosen as the official mascot of the 31st Southeast Asian Games, the saola is not only a symbol of strength and friendliness, but also an urgent call for Vietnam's biodiversity. The disappearance of the saola would leave a gap in humanity's natural heritage that can never truly be replaced. The wild world is still filled with wonders, but they need our shared care and protection. Every small action today is a ray of hope, so phantoms like the saola can keep moving beneath the old growth forest canopy instead of fading into distant memories. We have just journeyed through the rawest slices of evolutionary adaptation and the life or death arenas of giant hoofed mammals. Which animal in today's episode made you see the wild world differently? Was it the resilient horned fortress of the African buffalo or the striking armor of the wild yak? Share your experience in the comments. Your understanding is a meaningful tribute to these wild animals. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to join me on the next field journeys, where we will continue decoding the most mysterious survival codes. And if you want to explore more wild animals, keep going with hyena versus lion, clash of predators in the savannah, or wild dogs versus lion, when unity survives overwhelming power.